vouchers that seniors would use to pay big insurance companies. Also, according to the CBO, the vouchers won't be nearly enough to pay for their care, which you have told us tonight they would be. In fact, by 2030, the CBO estimates the average senior would be paying big insurance companies more than $20,000 each year out of their own pockets. If they can't afford it, they won't get the care. My question is the CBO correct and reliable, or only the parts that you decide to pick and choose correct?
Well, I think what you're referencing about, I think you said Republicans blasting the president.
CBO.
Well, it wasn't the CBO number, it was the scoring methodology. But here's the way the CBO works. CBO is a nonpartisan entity, Congressional Budget Office. The CBO will score whatever you ask it to score. It doesn't matter what party affiliation you are, but they will score what you ask it to score. So if you ask the CBO to score your net worth, but you say exclude my mortgage and my car payment, you get a very different number than if you ask them to score your net worth with your mortgage and car payment in it. What was provided to the CBO, and they have to score what is proposed, what is given to them. There were figures that were provided to them that were not accurate, that were not correct. That was the complaint that was made about the scoring methodology. I think the CBO does a pretty good job of scoring. It doesn't matter whether I like or dislike the answer or outcome, but what I ask is that if you're going to act, if a member of Congress or the President of the United States is going to ask the CBO to score a piece of legislation, that they provide all the relevant information. That, I think, is critical because the country deserves to know the truth. The country deserves the facts. And I think most people in this country are, quite frankly, frustrated with the fact of how Washington operates. And that's part of the fundamental problem. Providing information to a particular scoring entity to get a predictable outcome is wrong. And what we need is less of the partisanship and more leadership and more willingness to say, let's try to find solutions, let's try to find ideas. But this won't be the first idea or proposal on how to save Medicare and Medicaid, but I'm glad that there are proposals on the table. And I hope that there are more proposals that come on the table. And it doesn't matter to me whether it's Paul Ryan or Barney Frank. What I want to see is proposals. And what I want to see is this country moving in the right direction, having results, because you deserve it. Every American deserves it. Every American deserves the best government we can possibly elect. And you know what? America's not getting that right now. And that frustrates me as a citizen. It frustrates me as a 4-month member of the institution. And it frustrates me as a father and as a husband. So what I try to do is work with, again, anyone in Washington who's willing to try to honestly solve these problems. The fact is that if we don't do something, Medicare, Medicaid is going to go bankrupt. I don't think anybody wants to see that. I don't want to see it. I don't think any current recipient wants to see it. I don't think anybody in this room wants to see that. So let's solve the problem, and let's try to do it in a constructive, civil way. And I think, I'm an optimist, I think we can do it. I think this Congress can do it. Despite maybe the different ideological positions that people hold, I think we can do it. And I think we can do it because the country is demanding it. The country is expecting it. And slowly but surely, more and more people are walking Washington are starting to get that.
Next question is from Ray Shakir with regard to energy.
I just want to thank you very much for coming here. We really appreciate it. I have two energy questions. The first one is that despite the incredible amount of disinformation and propaganda about who's responsible and what is responsible for to get your read on it, on how you believe, what you believe is responsible and who is responsible for it. That's part one. Part two, I'd like to know what you think about the ethanol program.
All right, I'll try to be brief. I will eliminate the ethanol subsidy. I don't think it's fair. I think it's and again, if you bring tax policy down to fairness, what we ought to be doing is reducing and simplifying the tax code, making it fair for every business and every taxpayer. Treat everyone the same. Relative to why do I think oil prices are going up, it's, there's several different components and moving parts. This first started with the uncertainty in the Middle East. We rely, it's policy right now in the United States of America to rely for the majority of our fossil fuels from the Middle East.
No.
And if that is,
no.
if that's the public policy that we want, then you know what? We're going to have to deal with rising prices from time to time. I don't believe that that's good public policy. I believe that if we want to control the cost of oil and control the cost of gas, that we have to be exploring for oil in this country. We've got we can also extract in a environmentally appropriate way natural gas, and we can also utilize alternatives like wind and solar, and I think that can be part of the solution. I co-sponsored a piece of legislation that is an above-all energy policy that utilizes all of those different methods of energy production and consumption. A couple weeks ago when I was home, I put $100 gallons of oil into my tank at my house. It cost $370. I wasn't even filling up the tank. It was just 100 gallons. And I went to the gas station. I have a Ford Edge. It's a small one of those mini, small, sort of hybrid middle between car and an SUV. It cost $71.50 to fill up the gas tank. And if you think about how that affects us in terms of the rest of our expenses, when you go to the grocery store, you're seeing two things. You're seeing rising prices, but you're also seeing smaller cartons, smaller packaging. The energy costs in this country affect us all day long. And we can either just have public policy that says we're going to deal with it, or we can do something about it. And I think it's time that we do something about it. So I have co-sponsored legislation. Last week we passed legislation in the House that we sent to the Senate to try to address these issues. And if we can actually pass something this summer, just the fact that the Senate passed something and the President would sign something into law, you would see a beginning of a reduction, not a total reduction, but you'd start to see a reduction in gas prices, just because we're sending a message.
Dick and Sue Vitale from North Conway with regard to health care.
Thank you for coming here this evening, Representative Guinta. I'm very, very, very upset on this Obamacare thing. There are provisions in there that have nothing to do with health care. One of them is a tax, a 3.2% tax. I believe it's after 2014. If you sell your house, you pay an additional 3.2% tax to the government. That is part of Obamacare. What in the world does that have to do with medical care for people? And how do we stop it? This thing is a train wreck heading for the cliff. We have got to stop it somehow. That's just one tiny provision of it. I don't even know all the others, but I'm sure there are many more like that. How do we stop this?
The tax provisions or revenue generating provisions within the healthcare law are designed in part to pay for the cost of the bill. I don't believe the bill is good public policy. I did co-sponsor the legislation to repeal a piece of legislation, and that did pass the House. I think there are better ways to improve our healthcare system in this country. But there are also a couple of things that are happening through the committees of jurisdiction. Components of the piece of legislation that deal with tax policy are being reviewed by committees and then coming back to the floor of the House for votes. One provision that I co-sponsored was repealing the 1099 provision. That was a provision that said if you did business with anyone and you spent more than $600 a year, you have to send them a 1099. So depending on the type of business entity you have, you could be sending thousands to other vendors, businesses that you're doing business with. I would hear consistently from business owners that they would have to hire people just to handle that one provision. We repealed that provision. The provision that you refer to is in the bill. I can get you the specific language. It refers to certain property over a certain dollar amount. I can find out specifically what dollar amount it is, but it is in the bill. And if you give us your contact information, I can call you or send you an email on it. But I don't think that is an appropriate manner in which to pay for something, nor do I think it should be in that piece of legislation. I think that it probably will come to the House for a vote for repeal at some point. But we can research and find out when, and I'd be happy to let you know.
Next question is from Marie Robinson with regard to a manufacturing suggestion.
Good evening. I'm really concerned about manufacturing in New Hampshire. My husband and I own a small business. We have 13 employees. We are in contract manufacturing. Over the last 2 years, 40 contract manufacturing and support businesses have folded in the state. That's only in the state. And it is ridiculous. We're getting hit by the state of New Hampshire with an increase. They doubled for the unemployment tax. They doubled the amount we have to withhold on. And they upped it to 6.2% in the state of New Hampshire. That's one little item. We are a subchapter S corporation, so we have to pay personal taxes on what we earn in the company. I've been doing the bookkeeping, working at least 30 hours a week in our company for over 35 years, and I have never been paid a cent. So I work on the outside as well. I'm retired now, but I worked at another job for 19 years so that we could survive. We're not rich. We're not rich. We have assets, which count as something, but money is owed on them. And we cannot find the work that we need to survive. We've had the worst 2 years in our history, in the last 2 years. And I just have a suggestion as to corporate taxes. Nobody's going to hear this. Nobody's going to want to hear it, especially on the left. But we have so many companies. Cisco is totally out of the country. They are manufacturing totally overseas. So what if we decide, Ireland, I think, has the lowest tax rate, and there is a code within the IRS that allows American companies, as long as they have a building and doing some manufacturing overseas, they don't have to report. They can keep their money open. GE is doing it. And that's why they paid no taxes here this year. It is